Hi ladies and gentlemen, this is Tony Holowitz and I want to thank you for being here for this Excel tutorial. In our previous tutorials, we've really been talking in theory. I've been sort of showing you around Excel, giving you a couple, little tips here and there, just trying to give you and get you acclimated to working in Microsoft Excel. But in this tutorial, we're going to start taking a look at a use of Microsoft Excel. And the example I'm going to use here is I'm going to ask you to imagine that you're a human resources director at a company and you need to keep certain kinds of information about a company. Hence, you've decided you want to do a spreadsheet in which you can keep that information. So, for example, you want the name, the telephone, the social security number, the rate of pay, and the start date of an employee, and you want to create a list. Now, one of the things I tell all my students when it comes to Microsoft Excel and about computers in general, there's a lot of something shiny moments, meaning like when you start working in software or anything on your computer, you see something, you get distracted. It's very easy to think, well, if I do this and do this and do this, I can get all this stuff done. And all of a sudden, the simple task at hand gets overwhelmed with stuff that really isn't that important. It might be the color of things. It might be the size of a font or a type style. So I always tell people don't get too overwhelmed with that stuff. And a great way to avoid doing that when working in Microsoft Excel is forget about Excel. What I mean by that is if you want to do a spreadsheet, for example, like this spreadsheet, before you ever sit down to work in Excel, sort of write it out on a piece of paper. So one of the things I want to illustrate is I always tell people if you were to draw an L, the letter L, a capital L, you'd go down and then you'd go over to make the L. Now that might not be the best illustration, but you'd go down and then over and that's the L. Well, when I talk to people about working in an Excel spreadsheet, I tell them to do an upside down L, meaning go across and then down. So then you'd go down this way to finish the L, up and over, or down this way. So it's an upside down L. Now, the reason that's relevant is because I think that's the best way to think of the flow of information. And you'll notice when you start working with Excel, you'll get a lot of spreadsheets that are sent to you from other people that they have the data all over the place and it's disorganized, so it's harder to work with. So in this case, I was thinking, okay, we go over and down. That's my upside down L. So what we'd want here is we'd want the name, we'd want the telephone number, the social security, the rate of pay, and the start date in this particular spreadsheet. Now what I did just to make this a little simpler is I came down here and I created another sheet where I did a little bit of formatting and I also just added a little bit of information to save time. So here we are. We have names. We have Tom Smith, Sarah Jones. We have a telephone number, social security number, rate of pay, and start date. So we have some very fundamental information started here in the spreadsheet. And let me show you what I think about when I'm developing a spreadsheet. Not only am I thinking about the look and feel of the spreadsheet, but I'm thinking of the functionality of the spreadsheet. So let me illustrate what I mean by that. First of all, when we have names, let's say we had 100 names we had to put in this list. Well, what happens with Excel is when you start typing in names, let's say we want to put in my name, Tony Holowitz. Now I want to draw your attention up here to Tom Smith. Next, we want to type Tony Holowitz here. So the first two letters are the letter T and then O. So watch what happens when I start by putting in the letter T. Because Tom Smith is above it and it starts with the letter T, it's trying to anticipate what I'm trying to type. And it's thinking, hey, do I want to type Tom Smith here? If indeed that's what I want to type, I could just hit the Enter key and Tom Smith would be filled in. But it's not. I'm going to hit the letter O for Tony. Now again, it can't distinguish between Tony and Tom Smith, so it still thinks or it's anticipating I want to put Tom Smith in here, but I don't. So I'm just going to keep going. And here we go, Tony Holowitz. Right there. Oop, I misspelled that. Let me go back. Oop, let me double click. Put the O in right there. There we go. So Tony Holowitz. Next, we have telephone numbers. Now, in this particular case, I just typed in a 10-digit telephone number, the area code and the number. And that's my actual phone number if you ever want to reach me. Typed in a social security number, rate of pay, and then the date. But obviously, those don't look too good. And if we're entering a lot of information, we want to make this information as easy to work with as possible. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come right here and I'm going to click on this cell. And I'm going to right click. In other words, I'm going to click on the right mouse button. I'm going to right click. And when I do that, I'm going to come down here to where it says Format Cells. And I'm going to click on this. Now, when you're working with Excel, they've done a lot of things to make it easier for you to enter information. I want you to observe that the general category is chosen. But I'm going to come down here and I'm going to click on Number. And I'm going to just click on these things so you can see what they look like. Actually, I'm going to use the downward arrow just to go through them. And I'm going to draw your attention down here to where it says Special. And I want to draw your attention right here to the phone number. And I'm going to click on that and click OK. And what it's going to do next is it's going to format it as a phone number. Now let me go in and put Sarah Jones in it. I'm going to type in the same exact number, 781-728-9777, and I'm going to hit enter. And I want you to observe that it did not format it as a phone number. Let me just come over here to social for social security number. And I'm going to click on the column C. Instead of just clicking on the cell, I'm going to click on the letter C, and it's going to select the entire column. I'm going to bring my pointer down slightly, right click, and go Format Cells. Only because I know this, I'm going to click on Special, and I'm going to look over here and I have a social security number. I'm going to click OK. Now, social security numbers are 9 digits. Now, you're going to notice that we have all these pound signs right here, and I'm going to just click and drag over, and I'm going to make it big enough to hold them. What the pound signs were is telling me that I have some numbers in here that I can't see. So I'm just going to drag over to make it big enough. Now, social security numbers are 9 digits. It starts with the first 3, then 2, and then the last 4. So it's 324. It formatted this as a social security number. Next, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to type in the social security number backwards. I'm going to go 987-654-321 and I'm going to hit enter. And I want you to observe that in this case, when I typed in the social security number here, it formatted it as a social security number. Now the difference being this. When I formatted this cell, I only formatted the cell, not this cell. When I formatted this, I formatted the entire column. So anything I put below it would be formatted the exact same way. So when we start talking about an Excel spreadsheet, and I start talking about forget about Excel for a moment and writing it on a piece of paper, some of the things you want to think about is how do I want to format things? What do I want them to look like? So sometimes what you can do, or not sometimes, but as you start working on a spreadsheet, one of the questions I want you to ask yourself is this something I'm going to use over and over and over again? Because if it is, you most likely want to format a bunch of things, make it as easy as possible to do data entry, and then save this as a template versus just a regular workbook. And I'm not going to get into template versus workbook right here. I'll do a separate tutorial on that. But this is something that you want to be aware of. So for example, if I want to format the entire column as a telephone number, again, I'm going to right click after selecting the letter B. I'm going to right click, go Format Cells, and I'm going to choose Special just because I happen to know it's here. Click Phone Number and OK. Now it formats everything in here, and any subsequent phone numbers I put in will be formatted just for ease of use. I might want to center everything, so I'm going to click on column B, drag all the way over to E, and now I'm going to center everything. There we go. Now I clicked twice because some of it was centered already. Next, for the rate of pay, let's try this one. Let's click on the column D, right click, and go down on Format Cells. And here we can do currency. We can decide how many decimal places. 2 is typical, and I'm going to click OK. And now what it does is it formats, oops, I did that the wrong way. Well, I can do that again. I can type in 12.75, and it made the rate of pay as $12.75 an hour. The start date, again, let's go in and format the date. Click on Format Cells. We can look at the date option, and we can decide how do we want this formatted. Let's do it like this. Click OK. And there we go. We formatted some dates. Now, just so you know, sometimes when you throw dates in and then you format it after the fact, you get some weird results back. But let's say this person started 6-12-98. I'm going to hit enter. and there we go. Puts it in. So I did it a little bit different, but you got to work with the data a little bit and you'll start to see how that works. So now we have a spreadsheet from a human resources department that is easier to work with because now as we put more information in, it's going to automatically be formatted properly. Oop, let me do this. I'm going to type in 1045 and it formatted it. I totally mistyped that. Let me go in 10.45 and it formatted as a dollar amount. So when you're working with Excel, you want to put a little bit of thought into it. And this is just a very simple example of how you can do that and think about working with Excel. This is the human resources example. So if I refer back to it, well, this is what you'll know. There's one other thing I want to show you in this particular example that can be handy. Let's say you're the human resources person and you're in the office and you have a lot of people walking by your screen. They can see your screen because maybe you're in a cubicle or have an open desk. And you might not want people to see the Social Security number, for example. I'm going to click on column C, and then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to come down to where it says hide. And it's gone. I've hidden it. Now I want you to observe up top, the column goes A, B, D. C is hidden. If I want to bring that back, I can click on column B, drag over to D, right click, and go unhide. And it unhides that. So I can hide information I don't want people to see. Could they get it back if they knew how to do it? Absolutely. But if they can't see it at a glance, that might be beneficial. So these are just a bunch of subtle little things you can do with Excel. A simple example of how you can use Excel to keep track of data. My name is Tony Holowitz. Thank you very much. Have a great day.